Hey everybody, I hope you're having a great Saturday night. James just called me about half an hour ago and he'll be home in about an hour, so I thought I'd get on here and catch up with you. It's been 2 or 3 weeks since I made a video, and the last one I made was I talked about Joshua coming home and him bringing his dogs home. You know, I was really worried about it, but we had such a good visit and his dogs were so good. Joshua had come home on a Saturday on Labor Day weekend, and he had planned on leaving on Wednesday. But a day or two before he come home, he hurt his back working out. So, you know, of course everything was closed and stuff. So Tuesday morning, him and James went down to the family doctor, and he sent Joshua over there to have an x-ray. And so the results were going to be back on Friday. So Joshua just stayed an extra couple days with us, and they said they want him to have an MRI. They think he might have a herniated disc. But that's an old injury. He's hurt his back a long time ago, and I hope it's nothing real bad. But anyway, his little dogs were just so cute, and they only had a couple of accidents, and that was because they weren't taken out. And but they didn't chew anything up, but they were all over the house downstairs. We wouldn't let them upstairs. You know, Jasper spent most of his time upstairs, and there wasn't no fights or nothing. So, but it was just a good visit. I hated to see him go, and I really think he hated to go home, you know. But he had a week off from work, and so I think he enjoyed his time home. Hold on just a second. Alright, I'm back. But anyway, it's just been an ordinary week or two. The whole time Joshua was home, I didn't watch videos, you know. We spent our time with Joshua. We didn't really do much. We saw the Avengers, watched a few movies, and of course ate too much. Just had a good visit, you know, with him being home. And so I'm way behind on watching videos. I'm sorry. I don't know if I'll be able to catch up or not, but I'm going to try. But like I said, it's been just an ordinary couple weeks for us. James has been working, and, you know, same old with me. Until yesterday. Well, you know, I hinted a long time ago that I had a Jeep story. And really, I was ashamed to tell you about it. And I still am, in a way, you know. I mean, it's not really anything, but back in 2011, last year, in January of last year, James and I bought a brand new Jeep, a Jeep Grand Cherokee. It was white. It was a beautiful Jeep. And everybody that went to South Tube that year saw it, because James and I went to South Tube in October that year. And James drove down there and drove back. Well, when he got home, he told me that that Jeep had hurt his back, the seats in it. And he had to lay on the floor for 5 days when he slept on something hard because his back hurt so bad. So I told him, I said, well, honey, you don't really drive the Jeep. I'm the one who drives the Jeep. And, you know, I don't take it on long trips. And so, you know, I just figured, you know, we don't really go on trips, you know what I mean? So, but every time James got in that Jeep, he said something about the seats. So, this past May, we're coming back from his cardiologist. He had an appointment with his cardiologist. It was just routine checkup. And, of course, the dealer that we bought the Jeep from is right about in that same area. And James said, well, I'm going to stop and I'm going to see what them leather seats feel like on them Jeeps. And I told him, I said, well, honey, I don't want to trade, because I'd already paid 16 months on this Jeep, and I love the Jeep, you know what I mean? And he said, well, I know, but I want to see what they feel like. So, of course, he went over there, and he sat in those Jeeps with leather seats, and, of course, he wanted to trade, you know. And I told him, I said, James, most people going to think us buying a Jeep and then turning around just a few months later and getting another Jeep. I said, if you can find a Jeep just like the Jeep we've got, that people won't know that we've traded. I said, we'll trade if they can work with us. And of course, he found a Jeep just like ours, except it was a 2012. It had leather seats in it. It did have a navigation system in it and had a backup system, something that the other Jeep didn't have. It was quite a few $1,000s more, but they worked with James and got the payments just $50 more, and they give him an excellent APR on it, 1 point something. I mean, and of course we had to start over again at 5 years, but James liked the way them seats felt, and so, honey, we bought that Jeep that day and got on the road and headed home. And James was happy, and that made me happy, you know what I mean? But almost immediately, we knew there was something wrong with that Jeep. Every time we turned the Jeep on, it blew smoke so bad. I mean, it would billow around the cars and overtop the hood, the roof of the car. And James said, there's something wrong with that Jeep. That's an antifreeze leak. So he went out there and he marked the antifreeze thing, and he would check it every few days to see if it was losing antifreeze. And I tell you what, every time I went to church or went to the store or something, and I started that Jeep up and it blew that smoke so bad, I was getting plumb embarrassed about all the smoke it was blowing out. Every time I pulled it out of the garage, honey, the big old plume of smoke come out first and then come the Jeep. And I was getting embarrassed about it. Well, it got to the point, too, it started losing oil. James had already had to put oil in it. And about 2 or 3 weeks after we bought it, I called the dealership and I told him, I said, that Jeep is blowing white smoke, something terrible. Oh, there's nothing wrong with that Jeep. That's normal for that to happen. You know, that Jeep don't even hardly have 100 miles, and at the time it didn't. They said, you just got to wear the new off of it. I said, okay. Well, a month and a half later, it was still blowing smoke, something terrible, like a smokestack. And by then, you know, James hadn't started checking the oil then, but he had started checking the antifreeze. And that's really what he thought. He thought we had an antifreeze leak or whatever. So, honey, one day I got my Jeep and I drove it over to the dealership, which is over an hour away. And I took my video camera with me because I knew what they were going to tell me. It had 250-some miles on it then. Or maybe 300. It didn't have hardly any miles on it. So, honey, they went and looked at it, and they called me into the service office, and they said, Miss So-and-so, we promise you there's nothing wrong with your Jeep. I said, well, what about that white smoke that's blowing out of there? Oh, well, that's normal. They said, you ought to see the smoke that blows out of them when we pull them off the carriers. I said, can I get that on video? Can I get you saying that on video? They said, no, ma'am, we don't really want you to do that, but everything we've written down here on this piece of paper tells you what we've said. I said, okay. Well, honey, you know when I come home, the reaction I got from James. He didn't like it one daggone bit. I said, but what are you going to do, James? He said there wasn't nothing wrong with it. Well, it's continued to blow smoke, and James started checking the oil, and the oil started going down. He had to put oil in it. And I tell you what, he was telling me, I'm only going to give that Jeep just a little bit of time, and I'm going to take it over there and park it on their lot and tell them they can have it. Well, Friday, that's yesterday, I was at the drive-thru at the Rite Aid, and the car was in front of me, and all of a sudden the Jeep sort of jerked. And you know what happens when a compressor on an air conditioner stops or starts? It'll make a thump. You know what I mean? It's sort of like a thump. Not really, but y'all know what I mean. Well, I thought that's what it was in the Jeep, but it had never done that before. And I thought, well, I wonder what that is. So the car in front of me pulled out, and then I pulled up to the window, which wasn't 15, 18 foot. And by the time I got up to the window, that Jeep was shimmying and shaking so bad. Here I was. I thought I was in an old jalopy. Excuse me. I thought, oh my Lord, am I going to be able to get home? So I got the medicine and I took off and went on home, and by the time I got to about 1.5 miles from the house, the check engine light came on. And it was making noise, and it seemed like I could smell stuff. I tell you what, I was a nervous wreck. I didn't have my cell phone. I was scared I wasn't going to make it home. So, honey, I prayed all the way home. Said, oh, please let me get home, Lord. Please let me get home. Well, I got home, pulled that car, the Jeep into the garage, honey. I was so upset. I was so angry. So I come into the house and got the number to the dealer, and I tell you what, I feel sorry for the salesman that I talked to. I asked for the guy that sold us the Jeep, but he was with the customer. And I didn't even fool with the service department because how they, dealt with me before. So I talked to the agent's cousin. He helped sell us the Jeep too. And I tell you what, I was crying and carrying on, telling them how awful they was, how bad that Jeep was, and how it only had 1,258 miles on it. And I was scared I wasn't going to get home, and I didn't have my cell phone, and that's not how a Jeep ought to act. And oh my Lord, I carried on something awful. I just threw a big one on him. I did. I feel sorry for him. I told him, I said, now in a little bit I'll calm down, but right now I'm very upset, and I was crying and carrying on something terrible. And he asked me for my phone number, and he said, I'll call you right back. Well, the guy that sold us the Jeep called me back. And before he had talked to the guy that sold us the Jeep, I was talking to his cousin, and I told him, I said, you're going to bring a carrier over here, and you're going to get this Jeep, and you're going to bring me a car to drive, because I'm not going to be stranded without a ride. I said, it's your all's fault, it ain't working right. Oh, I was a mess. I was. But anyway, the guy that sold us the Jeep, he called back and said, all right, we'll be over tomorrow. So this morning, honey, about 9:30, they came to pick up the Jeep. They brought me a car. And so I gave him time enough to get back over to the dealership, and I called him, and he said, oh, yeah, there's something wrong with it. But I won't know nothing about it until probably Monday afternoon or Tuesday morning. But I sure hope nothing really bad is wrong with that Jeep. But I knew, James and I both knew ever since we got it, there was something wrong with it. And James, sort of feels guilty a little bit because he's the one that won the leather seats and, But anyway, I've talked and talked and talked. I wanted to catch you up. I'll probably get back to you later on next week, and tell you what they said about the Jeep. And hope you all have a great tomorrow. This is Melissa reporting from up in the holler. Bye, everybody.